my next question for you. So what we can see is that the goal was to secularize Muslims. The goal was to spread democracy. I think this is very clear, right? Like Rash said at the beginning, go and read these reports. It's all there, right? What we can see is that after 20 years since 9/11, right, the Muslim world, and again, you can disagree with me if you want, the Muslim world, in my opinion, is not any more secular than it was 20 years ago, right? Okay, yes, one thing I will say for sure is that Western culture via social media has infiltrated the youth. But to say that people en masse have become secular and they don't want Islam, I totally disagree with this, right? So we can see that in respect of secularism, in respect of democracy, not as a shura, in their way, we can see that they haven't achieved their desired goal, and maybe that was arrogance, like Afi said, or they misdiagnosed the situation. But what they have done is taken the Muslim lands, taken, for example, the heartbeat of the Arab world, Iraq, Syria, the places where, you could certainly expect, like, influence over the Muslim lands, those capable states, they are decimated, they are destroyed. A lot of area in North Africa now is, basically destroyed, like Libya, for example, right? Then they started the Sunni, the Shia issue. When the Hearts and Mind project failed, they thought, well, okay, let's get them fighting each other. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't stop them, at least it will slow them down and maybe give some other options, right? Even though, look, America has options A, B, and C and all that. So it's not like they just thought of it one day. But we see that they caused this issue, rift. We saw the civil war in Iraq and Syria and so on. So what my question is, even though it would seem that in the primary goal of taking this ideology, not sincerely, like Rash said, like because of care of humanity, but because they want to control these lands, right? That never really materialized, in my opinion, as they planned. But do you think that the stuff that they've done, the Arab Spring, for example, where the Muslim world is today in regards to the chaos and all that, do you think that 20 years since 9/11, they have achieved other objectives linked to their primary one, which is to maybe slow down, which is to stop the rise of Islam? What do you guys think?
I think when someone's mission in life is to preserve their way of life, they're never going to stop. This is going to go on till the day of judgment, just like we know that the struggle between Islam and Kufr is going to go on till the day of judgment. What happens over time is that depending on whether the measures they put in place are successful or not, they adapt. And I think that's what we're finding with what the enemies are doing, enemies of Islam are doing. Because let's be clear, this struggle of trying to get Muslims to abandon Islam has been going on for centuries. It happened from the moment Muhammad got revelation, and they started then.
The Quraysh were doing it.
The Quraysh were doing it, and this is where Muslims need to understand the life of Muhammad, and understand Islamic history, because you will find that this has never stopped. All that's happened is that it's adapted, it's evolved, and they're trying different things. So we know that the West have tried to get Muslims to accept Islam, accept the Western way of Islam by trying to show its merits. But these merits contradicted with other merits, so the Muslims never accepted it. They were trying to get the Muslims in the West to be advocates and ambassadors for the Western way of life. But that never happened. And I think one thing that they have started to do, and this is the bit that I would say they haven't been successful in anything that they've done, they've just made Muslims' lives really, really dire, so that the Muslims are thinking about where am I going to get my next meal from, rather than thinking about unity. And that's understandable, but it doesn't mean that they've abandoned the thoughts of unity. They're still there, because this is fundamental to what our belief is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
One thing I think that they started to do is they're starting to change what Islam means in the minds of people. And what I mean is, you can't change the Quran and you can't deny the life of Muhammad. But what they're starting to do is break that link that Muslims have with these sources. And they're trying to do this. And an example of this is how in Saudi Arabia, for example, they're changing the curricula that people are taught. Historically, they've been taught, from the Islamic books. So now if you change the Islamic books, what people are being brought up with,
generation game,
is they're being brought up with different views or different thoughts, or that link with Islam isn't as strong as what they would have had historically. That's still doomed for failure because the Islam is still there. Muslims will still refer back to it, but they're starting to change. And it's not just in the Muslim countries, even in the non-Muslim countries. That guy from Nottingham, he came out with a translation of the Quran, which is not in line with what Islam is, because they're trying to just sever that link between Islam and the rules and application in life, and trying to sever and trying to then dilute it, so that then further, as the generations go on, they can start to dilute it further and further and further. But again, it's doomed for failure because you can't deny the truth.
Yeah. I think also, come to a second, Rash, I think also you might have come across the term constructive chaos, which was coined by Condoleezza Rice. And what we're seeing here is the fact that, you cause chaos, that you draw up new lines. Because you got to remember that in 20 years from 9/11, it would have been probably impossible 20 years ago for the normalization to happen as it did, where these countries came on and normalized Israel, right? That would not have happened. So it's a process. But what you see is, like, even in this chaos, you can redraw lines. And also, like you said, if people just can think of their next meal, they're not thinking of world domination. And these lot of things that at that stage, if then you say, do you want a good life? Do you want to be living like us? Then this is what you need to do. And actually, religion has been your biggest enemy. Because of religion, you're in this situation, right? But like you said, Afin, it's a really good point that people haven't forgot the roots. They haven't forgot these things. At the moment, maybe their priority, and not maybe, it definitely is, their priority is feeding their children. But that doesn't mean they deny all those other things.